So patriarchy was on full display at that Trump-Zelensky meeting, and we need to talk about it because especially if you're deconstructing and healing from Christian patriarchy and trying to heal from religious trauma, this conversation is very important to you because the weapons that patriarchal systems rely on were on full display during that meeting. What we saw in that meeting was more than just political theater. It was a masterclass in patriarchal abuse. It used humiliation, control, gaslighting to dominate the conversation. And if you grew up in the church or a patriarchal home, this probably felt very familiar to you and probably triggering. So let's break it down so you better understand why this is, yes, outrageous, even dangerous for our country, but also why you are triggered and perhaps terrified as a response to that meeting, because there's an element of education, but also of healing for you. So let's hope that this helps you become a better version of yourself, because that's all what we're working for, right? So the only way patriarchal systems survive is by keeping their victims small and making them believe that they are powerless. So the first thing that Trump and Vance did was attempt to control the narrative by spewing whatever they wanted while requiring silence from everyone else. Now think of a time when that happened to you in church, in your home, any place where you were supposed to be silent while someone else controlled the narrative and you knew they were lying, but if you challenged them, you would be punished. That's what you saw. Now, you see this playing out nationally as well, because Elon Musk has repeatedly said and warned that any politician who challenges Trump will lose their next election. So basically, Elon is saying that I will pour millions into making sure that you get defeated, because that's the threat of power, using control through fear. That's a very powerful weapon that patriarchy uses. So what they expected was that Zelensky would sit there and quietly agree with whatever they said, because what they're trying to do is expand their power beyond America and beyond just their MAGA base, who's just going to sit there and mindlessly nod their head at whatever Trump or Musk or Vance says. So you also see it in the spineless Republicans who were in that room, who are in power, who refuse to challenge him. And also, we have to look at mainstream media, because they sit day after day in those meetings and those press briefings, and they listen to the lies and misinformation that are spewed, and oftentimes they're not challenged. Most people don't push back because they fear being left out. But if you remember, I think it was just last week, Trump got pushback from French President Macron, who just reached over and physically touched Trump to interrupt him and correct him. And did you see Trump's face? Go back and look at that video, because Trump was not happy, but Trump did not challenge him. He knew he had been caught. Patriarchy will wither back when someone with more knowledge and experience and power steps into the place. And that's exactly what you saw. And I'm sure Trump was furious about that. Now, these moments matter because it proves something crucial. It is Trump trying to expand his base, but it isn't necessarily going as planned when he reaches out for global power. So let's also talk about the gaslighting that was on full display, because what Trump and Vance especially tried to do was what is called weaponized gratitude. And this is when they kept repeatedly demanding that Zelensky be more grateful. That's a form of patriarchal gaslighting. Well, here's why. Number one, it's not true. I think immediately people started pushing back and showing that I think it's up in the triple digits the time that Zelensky has expressed gratitude for the funding that he has received from America to fight the invasion of Russia into his country. But what this is also, for those of us who looked at that and really was triggered, that was a power through obligation. And what that is patriarchy frames power over personal agency as something given rather than a fundamental right. In other words, I get to tell you what to believe, how to dress, how to live your life, everything about you, because look what I do for you. Look how much I do for you. You should be grateful, and you should show deference to who I am and my beliefs. And no matter the cost. And oftentimes inside patriarchal structures, it very much minimizes your value and your voice. And in that situation with Trump and Zelensky, what they were trying to do was use weaponized gratitude to get Zelensky to submit. So it was like twisting into some kind of submission, because what they were saying was, well, let's just make this the biggest issue in the room. Why would we give him more money if he's not grateful? So if you grew up in a patriarchal home, you may have experienced a parent who made you feel like you had no right to an opinion because they provided for your basic needs. In church, leaders justify their control by claiming they have a mandate from God. So you're not supposed to question them about anything. You're just supposed to be grateful that they're leading you to salvation. And so much harm has been done in the name of Jesus because of this type of weaponized gratitude. And now you have Trump and Vance who claim their authority comes from their voters. But what they're basically saying to all of us, we can't miss the fact that that display is also for the rest of us. Submit to us or suffer the consequences. That's what all of that is. Patriarchy never misses the opportunity, will never take its foot off the pedal to continually weaponize their authority. So the next thing you saw them try was to shift the blame. This is another major weapon of patriarchy, and this part may be triggering for anyone who experienced abuse at the hands of church leaders or anyone in your life who you should have been able to trust. Because shifting blame is a core tactic of patriarchal abuse. You've seen it before in child abuse, sexual abuse, in sexism and misogyny, in clergy cover-ups that extend far beyond just any one denomination. It is never the abuser's fault. It is never the abuser's fault inside a patriarchal system. Instead of holding Russia accountable for the war, they frame Ukraine as the aggressor, Zelensky as a dictator, and the U.S. as the real victim, because we've been forced to give support to someone who isn't grateful enough. This is a massive, massive gaslighting tactic. So if you have ever been blamed for your own abuse, whether as a child, a survivor of any kind of church harm, you know this tactic well. It's never the abuser's fault. You can also see this playing out. Just recently, Trump said he can't recall calling Zelensky a dictator. It is literally in print. He wrote it, but no one will challenge him. He'll just continue to repeat the lie. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the one that they used, the weapon of humiliation. This is another horrific weapon that patriarchal abuse uses. It's the interrupting, the screaming, the insults, all forms of abuse designed to silence the target, which was Zelensky here, and create a power imbalance. Because men like Trump and Vance demand loyalty and praise and never expect to be held accountable. But I think one of the most embarrassing moments for U.S. and everyone in that room who didn't speak up came when the reporter asked Zelensky why he wasn't wearing a suit. Even the look on Trump's face when he turned around to be entertained by Zelensky's answer. Zelensky's response was priceless when he called a suit a costume, because basically that's what it is. And it's a classic example of bullying rooted in patriarchy, because you're using humiliation and mockery to establish dominance instead of engaging in real discussion. This, of course, is very hypocritical, because just go look at how many times Elon Musk shows up in a t-shirt, in a sports coat, and often a hat in the Oval Office during the cabinet meeting. Now, I suspect that Elon is doing it on purpose. I think he's intentionally wearing these kinds of costumes so that he can be a contradiction in what he's saying about Trump versus what he's really showing. Because I don't think he has any respect for Trump at all. But this type of bullying is ingrained in toxic masculinity and its obsession with hierarchy and control. The focus on Zelensky's clothing rather than his leadership in a war zone was a deliberate attempt to diminish him, because humiliation is a control tactic. It's why women are shamed for what they wear. It's why Black leaders are called angry. It's why abuse survivors are forced to prove their suffering instead of the abuser being held accountable. Abusers will always force the person being attacked to justify themselves while ignoring the real harm being done by their aggression. Trump and his allies consistently go after those they perceive as vulnerable, whether it's marginalized groups, refugees, or in this case, a foreign leader facing an invasion. They cling to a performance of masculinity that equates power with wealth, aggression, and domination rather than resilience, leadership, and moral conviction. This was never about the clothing. It's about control. The rules are only enforced when it benefits them and used as a tool to humiliate those they want to weaken. This is a deliberate strategy to maintain power structures, forcing those they attack to play defense rather than addressing the real issues at hand. The entire meeting was patriarchal abuse. And this system of power is built on keeping all of us small, silent, and submissive. Trump, Musk, Vance, everyone else in that room is relying on it. But here's the thing. Once you recognize these tactics, you stop falling for them. You stop playing defense. You reclaim your voice, and that is what patriarchy fears the most. Now, I hope this resonates with you, and just take a moment, if you can, go back and watch that, because this is a lesson in patriarchal abuse, and once you see it, you can start to heal and deconstruct from it. Now, thank you for watching, and please show support for my work by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, spirituality matters because everything is spiritual, and you matter. Till next time.